Bonjour à tous, welcome to another French grammar lesson. Today we'll be looking at l'imparfait, which is the imperfect tense. Now, one of the biggest problems people find with this tense is not so much the conjugation, but the use. How do we know when to use the imperfect and not passé composé? Well, first of all, the imperfect is used to talk about continuous actions in the past. So passé composé is all about completed actions, but the imperfect is used when we're talking about a time when the action was still going on. In English, we can express this by saying something like, I was playing. So the time period that we're talking about here, I am still playing. If I said I played, we're talking about after I've finished. Imparfait is also used to talk about habitual actions in the past. These are things that used to happen on a regular basis. For example, I used to play. Now, on a very basic level, these are the two simplest translations for the imperfect. Was doing something or were doing something, and used to do something. So if you have either of these, you can be fairly sure that you'll use the imperfect to translate them into French. However, l'imparfait is also used to talk about actions of an unspecified duration, in which case the English translation can be something like I played. Now, of course, we can also use passé composé to translate I played. So it's often best to think about exactly what it is that you want to say rather than just translating the words, because sometimes the same words can have a different meaning. And of course, I need to stress to you that French makes no distinction between any of these meanings, so although there are 3 ways to express the imperfect in English, there is only one in French. So word for word translations do not work. So now let's have a look at the conjugation, which is actually fairly simple because the method that we're going to use works for both regular and irregular verbs. So here's the formula. We take the new form of the present tense, remove the ONS, and then add the imperfect ending to that. And like I said, you can do this with almost any verb. So here are the imperfect endings. Je, AIS. Tu is also AIS. Il, elle, on is AIT. Nous is IONS. Vous is IEZ. And il, elle is AIENT. And as usual, the ENT at the end of the il, elle form is not pronounced, so that ending is pronounced E, not ayant. Okay, so let's try this with a regular ER verb, jouer, which means to play. Step 1, take the new form of the present tense, that's jouant. Step 2, remove the ONS, that gives us the stem joue, and then to that we just need to add the endings. So here are our subjects, here is our stem, let's add the endings. Je jouais, tu jouais, il, elle, on jouait, nous jouions, vous jouiez, and il, elle jouait. There you go. Let's do the same again with a regular IR verb. Finir means to finish. Take the new form of the present tense, nous finissons. Remove the ONS, that gives us the stem finis, and then we'll add the ending. So here we go again. Je finissais, tu finissais, il, elle, on finissait, nous finissions, vous finissiez, and il, elle finissait. Okay, how about a regular RE verb? Attendre means to wait. New form of the present tense, attendons. Remove the ONS, gives us attendre. Okay, let's add the endings. J'attendais, tu attendais, il, elle, on attendait, nous attendions, vous attendiez, and il, elles attendaient. And again, the wonderful thing about this method is that it works for irregular verbs, so we can even do this with aller, which means to go and is usually irregular, but for the imperfect we just need to use the same method. New form of the present tense, allons. Remove the ONS, that gives us a stem al, to which we're going to add the endings. We have j'allais, tu allais, il, elle, on allait, nous allions, vous alliez, and il, elles allaient. Okay, what about être, another irregular verb, which means to be. Okay, take the new form of the present tense, that's some. There's no ONS to remove. So earlier on I said this works with almost every irregular verb. This is the only irregular verb for which this method does not work, simply because the new form of the present tense does not end with ONS. But don't fret, all we have to do is remember that the stem for être is et, and then to that we just add the endings as usual. And you'll use this one so often that you won't even have to think about it. So, take our subjects, our stem, let's add the endings. J'étais, tu étais, ils, elles ont été, nous étions, vous étiez, and ils, elles étaient. So it's really not that difficult. And there we go. That is the imperfect tense in a nutshell. Of course, there are other uses of the imperfect, and we will come across these in the future, but for now, that is a nice, good overview of the imperfect that should allow you to use it independently. If you want to have a look at some other verby kind of videos, then go to my verbs playlist. If you're not sure where to go to next, I would suggest le futur simple, assuming you've already done the futur proche. If you want to start talking about the future, but you haven't done the futur proche yet, I recommend doing that first because it's used all the time and because it's really, really easy. But if you feel ready for it, go for the simple future because that is also very, very useful. It's just a little bit more complex. Of course, if you have any questions, do ask. And until the next video, I will say to you, à bientôt.